Hello, and welcome to a new episode of The Career Changers. Today, our guest is Eric Cogorno, golf coach, entrepreneur, and personal development enthusiast. In 2017, Eric took to YouTube his experience of teaching more than 20,000 in-person golf lessons. Thanks to his clear language and simplified concepts, has attracted close to 400,000 followers across his channel and many millions of views from across the globe. He's on a mission to make world-class golf instruction available to everyone, and through the process, create the world's biggest and best online golf school. Today, we will talk about his career change journey, golf, and the importance of working on yourself daily. Hi, Eric. Welcome to the Career Changers.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you having me. Look forward to having a chat here.
That's great. So let's start with your background. What was your dream job when you were a child?
Gosh, when I was a kid, so I always played sports growing up, right? And a lot of us younger athletes, I think you dream of being a professional athlete when you're little. So I thought for a while I was going to be a professional baseball player, and then I thought, it'd be nice to be a professional basketball player. I played, and then that shifted into my passion for golf. So that was my dream when I was like a young boy playing sports. But I think as I shifted into like middle school and high school and saw how good other athletes were, and that I probably wasn't going to go be a professional baseball player, basketball player, I was always interested in being like a sports agent. So it shifted from go play to be a sports agent. And then when I realized that being a sports agent required going to school and then law school and then probably some more school after that, I figured that I would shift gears again. But yeah, I wanted to be an athlete and then an agent after that.
Mhm. So, what was your relationship with the schools, and what did you do with your education after the first years after compulsory education?
Yeah, so like and I liked school somewhat. Like I was very competitive growing up, so I liked the competitive nature of school and getting good grades and such, and didn't mind working hard. So I did well in school, throughout high school. I went to a small school near where I grew up and played golf for a little bit, but I didn't feel like I wanted to go to like 6 or 7 more years of school, after high school. Was a big part of it. I thought maybe four would be enough, but yeah, I always enjoyed school. It wasn't like I hated it. I didn't mind doing the homework and the work and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a point where I didn't want to do another 6 or 7.
And so, how did you start your professional life, or better, what was your first job?
My first job was at a golf course. So I grew up playing golf. My dad played golf, and when I was little, I think a lot of us younger boys, you look up to your dad. You think like your dad's like Superman when you're real little, and younger girls too. And so I wanted to just hang out with my dad. And my dad played golf on the weekends with his friends. And I just wanted to hang out with him. It was just like I just wanted to spend time with him on the weekends. And then when I first started playing, I wasn't any good. And they were all like pretty good golfers. As you're not good, really, usually when you start doing anything. So I wasn't good. And it went from, hey, I want to just hang out with them to I didn't like getting beat, every single time in the score. And so then that led me to like, hey, let me try and get good at this. And I got really obsessed with trying to get better at golf. And that was through like end of middle school, high school years. So I was probably 13, 14, all the way through like 18 years old. And then I got to the point where I could beat all of them. But part of me being able to play and practice was I had to get a job at the course to be able to like pay for my golf. I didn't grow up with money, really my parents kind of barely made ends meet, and did a lot for me to golf. So for me to be able to play and practice so I could beat them on the weekends, I had to get a job at the course. I don't know if you're familiar or not, but there's a person who drives a little golf cart out on the range, like picks up the golf balls. I did that. I did basically every job I could do at the golf course, minimum wage sort of things. And I don't know if this is skipping ahead to get to it, but like how I went from that picking balls working at the golf course into teaching golf, which was my first like main career, really like on accident. I wish it was a big passion thing or like, hey, I wanted to help a lot of people get better in the beginning. But honestly, I was picking balls one day on the range, and I was probably making like, I don't know, minimum wage, $6 an hour, let's say, $7 an hour. So I had to work 8 hours to make like $50. I remember that was the math. I had to work 8 hours to make $50. And I pulled the golf cart in one day, and there was a guy, a teaching pro, giving a lesson. And he made an offhand comment to me that he had just made $50 given a 30-minute golf lesson. And so obviously I didn't have to like do a lot of math. I was like, hey, 30 minutes to make $50 is a lot better than 8 hours. And so that's really where I shifted from my first job at the course into my first like career, which was the coaching, was just purely like an economics. Hey, this is $50 in 30 minutes is better than $50 in 8 hours.
How long did you teach for then?
Yeah, so I started teaching when I was 18. So let's say I worked at the course my first job when I was like 14 till 18. So I did that for like 4 years. And then I kept working at the course, kind of, leveling up a little bit of what my job and pay structure was. But I started giving lessons in person when I was 18. And I did just that as my main thing from like age 18 till probably 27. So it was like just shy of a decade, just shy of 10 years where I was teaching golf and really got obsessed with teaching golf. I have this thing where like when I'm not good at something, I tend to get obsessed and go all in and try and get good at it. Like I wasn't good at golf in the beginning, and then I really focused on it. I was no good at teaching golf. The first beginning year or so of that, I stunk. And so for that first decade, I really spent a lot of time trying to get great at the craft. Like, how do I get
Mm.
really, really good at coaching golf? And then that obviously led us into 2017 and starting the YouTube.
I guess as a young person transitioning to teaching, you had to face some barriers, probably mental as well. Which one in your situation?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. All of the above. I mean, gosh, it's hard to do anything new no matter what it is. It's then hard to do something new when you've got another human in front of you, like coaching. Like when you're coaching something to someone who expects results and you're new at coaching, that's inherently very difficult. But the catch is you only get better by doing it. Like you have got to go through that beginning phase. Just like I'm sure your first podcast you ever did, you were like, you look back now, you're like, holy cow, that stunk. But you had,
Definitely.
yeah, but the only way to do your second podcast, you do your first one, right? You have to do the work. So I think there was a couple of barriers for me. I was young, so I was 18. So a lot of times I'd be teaching people who were older than me. So that was kind of an interesting dynamic. I sort of made up for my lack of coaching knowledge with effort and like care. So one of the things I will give myself credit for that I was good at is I always cared a lot and I went above and beyond. So I thought like, okay, if this person leaves and I'm not able to, do great in my coaching job, I'm gonna like give them more time than they signed up for. I'm gonna really like follow up with them and make sure they're doing well. I'm gonna give them as much effort as I can so that at least that piece is there and I can feel good about it and I can get better at the coaching, like technical skill as you go. But I think to be a great coach, just like great at podcasts and many things, you have to have like technical knowledge. Like, what are we actually talking about? And then the communication is probably the second thing that I think I struggled with in the beginning and got better as time goes on. It's just like how you communicate with a human being in front of you, or even like we do now to a bigger audience. Like, how do you talk, present a message that's simple in the other person's mind, but deep enough in your mind. Like you need them to be able to hear it in a simple tone, but you understand it in a very like complex tone. And so I think those were sort of the barriers in the beginning of coaching.
Mm. And so, when in your journey did you come up with the idea to create your YouTube channel and share your golf knowledge with the world?
Yeah, it was about at that 10-year mark of my coaching journey. So this is 2016 into 2017. We posted our first video January 1, 2017. There was a slew of things happen. It's like depending, I don't know what people believe in religion or the universe or whatever, but there was a slew of events happen that were like unbelievable all at the same time for me. First, I was 27. I had been coaching for almost 10 years and I was like burnt out. I was like coaching all day, every day. felt burnt out, and I'm thinking, gosh, there's no way that I could do this for the next like 40 years. Like I can't be doing this when I'm like 60. So that was one thing. Like, okay, I got to kind of scale this thing. I got the business, my in-person coaching, so on year one, let's say I was working at the range making $6 an hour. I got that to the point where I was making like 80 grand a year coaching. So my first year I made like $7,500. My second year was 15,000, then 30, then 60, then like 80 to 90 is kind of where I leveled off, sort of like hit a wall there. So for me to go anything above that, I couldn't, there wasn't really much I could do when I'm just trading my time 1 hour for, money with someone else. So part of it was financial. Like, how do I go from where I'm at to another level? Part of it was I was burnt out. Part of it also, again, this all happened at the same time. My now business partner, Mary, came in for a lesson. She had a PR background. I was teaching a lot of kids at the point, like these group lessons. We had music playing. The kids were fun. It was like a fun environment. And she's like, "Hey, you have like a show. You should do like a golf show or something." And I was like, "Funny enough, you say that. I've been thinking about doing this YouTube thing." So on and so forth. We start to link up. And at the same damn time, like this is all like in the same like month this happened, someone sent me a Tony Robbins video. You familiar with Tony Robbins?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So Tony Robbins video. And I watched it and it was whatever. It didn't do much. What I didn't, whatever. But then on the side of there was like a recommended video from a guy named Jim Rohn. And I clicked on it and it was a goal setting workshop that he did. And I happened to watch it and I went through this goal setting workshop. And that's like the pivot point in my life where things really changed, where I got introduced to personal development. And now, again, this all hit me at the right time. Like, I think getting a message into someone, like the timing is so important. I was ready to hear what he had to say at that moment. I was burnt out. I wanted to make more money. I met this business partner. I wrote down this goal, dream life thing. Like, what would my life look like in 10 years if I had everything I wanted, in detail, and like the manifesting of that. And I'd never done this before. I would like loosely, maybe had loose goals or maybe loosely knew what I wanted to do, but not specific, no clarity behind it. So I wrote down on a sheet of legal pad what my life would look like in 10 years. And I started listening to Jim Rohn every day. And man, things skyrocketed from there. Like slowly but surely, but getting a lot of clarity on where I wanted my like dream life to go to, then I was able to reverse engineer everything we've done on YouTube and online since then. Like my mind was stuck at that 80 or 90 grand a year because that's all I could see.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did that goal setting workshop, it expanded like my mind to what I realized was possible. So I'll give you specifics, right? Like on that sheet, I wrote down everything I wanted. I did the math on it. Jim Rohn's big thing is like, can you pay for your dream life with financial freedom? So like your investments pay the monthly thing. And so I needed like 20 grand a month was my number of like to pay for all the stuff I wanted, houses, cars, yada, yada. 20 grand a month, 240 grand a year means I needed like $4 million invested. I need like 4 million to get the 20 grand. Is this good? Is this the good stuff? You want to keep going with this or you want to pivot?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay. So the fact that I needed to get to $4 million in my mind completely changed like how I decided what I wanted to do with work. Meaning like there was zero chance I could get to 4 million by just doing one-on-one lessons.
Mm.
Right? Like the realization of the clarity of the bigger end goal just completely shifted what I realized the steps I needed to take along the way. And so that's a long answer to your question, but I think it's all relevant of like the mindset and the things that happen all at that one point. Like I would have never done everything we did had I never did that goal setting workshop. I
Mm.
would just be doing the same thing I was doing before. It was like the want for that bigger thing that really changed everything.
Yeah, so you discovered the importance of working on yourself and not just on setting um, goals without looking actually at the way you're thinking, the way you're feeling. And one of your favorite quotes is work harder at yourself than at your job. Why is it
Mm.
important for everyone to dedicate daily time to work on themselves based on your experience?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm glad you ended that with based on my experience because that's the first line of the answer to me. It's like based on my experience thus far, it's just been undeniable in my life. Like it has worked the proof is in the pudding. Like the evidence for me of how my life was before I started doing personal development, and personal development, meaning like I am intentional about how I spend time every day to improve me and myself outside of just my work thing, or like the thing I do for work, right? That quote you said, Jim Rohn, like work harder on yourself than you do your job. No one ever said that to me. Like I was 27 years old, went through school, did all that. No, I never heard that before. Never, ever, ever. I think it's important. Like I always focus on getting good at my craft, which I also think is important. I think there's like two lines there. I think for all of us to level up, live better, whatever the thing is, we have to always get better at our craft. Like whatever our main thing is, you got to spend time doing that. But you've got to spend time improving yourself. Some of the things Jim says too is like or sort of the old adage of, to be a millionaire, like to have the $1 million, you got to be a millionaire first, meaning like you need to have the skills and the mindset, the networking, and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. So I think a big answer to that was part of what I said in the previous thing, which is why should people do the personal development and spend time on that? I was only able to see these life improvements after I got clarity on that end goal and that like where I wanted to get to. Like that literally reverse engineered my whole life. But in order to get to that end goal, I need to become a way different person. Like my skills need to be way, way, way different. And myself, who I was before at my business level, and the skills I had and the mindset could never do what I'm able to do now. Just like my version now won't be able to do what I can do in 10 years from now. Like that's obviously an ongoing thing. But I think because if you look at someone who's doing the thing you want, and then like what are they like? Like what skills do they have? How do they talk, walk, think? Where do they go? Where do they live? I've found success in just modeling a lot of that, in whatever category. Like what are they better at than I am? And then how do I model that and improve myself? And I think not doing that just puts a ceiling or a limit on our potential, you know?
Mhm.
And so that's sort of how I'm looking at that.
Hmm. So, I guess you said building discipline, boring is hard. I definitely agree with that. The path to great development and success can often actually be super boring. Patient is
Mm.
challenging. How did you experience this during your journey to self-realization?
Yeah. Do you find that to be pretty true? Like, do you
Yeah,
find that same thing?
definitely. Definitely, because you have every day you have to do the right things, and the right things generally are probably a repetition of habits every day, and sometimes you
Yeah,
just don't
exactly.
want to do it.
Yeah, and I found that same thing in my experience where it's like, so if we define discipline as, let's say, doing the things you're supposed to do or doing what you promise yourself you're going to do, whether you feel like it or not. Let's say that's kind of how we're looking at it. Just do the things you're supposed to do, whether you feel like it or not. Like the days we wake up and we feel like it, that's called motivation, right? Then I'm motivated. And that's great. Some days I wake up and it's sunny outside and I feel like doing it, and that's easy peasy. But the difference maker is on the days, obviously, when we don't feel like doing it, do you do it or not? And it's simple, not easy. It's one of those simple, not easy things. It's like when we do the things we're supposed to do, whether we feel like it or not, we achieve the things, we get better, etc. When we don't do those things, we don't. And it's not more complicated than that. It's just hard to do. It's just hard to do. Now, I think, and in my experience, it's been way easier to have discipline and do the things that I'm supposed to do, whether I feel like it or not, when I have a lot of clarity on that end goal. Like I'm going to be a broken record bringing that up all the time because I think it's so darn important. Like I've got so much clarity. For example, like I spend 20 minutes every day doing like a meditation, mindfulness, visualization, let's say, practice where I'm really, really clear on what I want in 3, 5, 10, 20, 50 years. And I think because I'm so clear on that and I think about it every day and like attach my emotions to it and I see it and feel it happening, that it's easier for me to have discipline on the days I don't feel like doing stuff because I'm so clear on where I'm going and what it feels like. I think in my first 27 years, when I didn't have clarity on stuff, it was a lot harder to have discipline and get through like the shitty days because I wasn't exactly sure where I was going, or I wasn't so committed and confident to it. But I think when you zoom out, like, I'm 35, I want to live to be 100. So for me, I'm like, okay, I've got 65 years to get better and do what I want to do. If I've got a shitty day next week, it's such a small thing in the grand scheme of things, where a macro zoomed out, I'm clear on where I'm going. It's easy to get through those difficult days. So I think for someone listening who struggles with discipline, I would start with that clarity on where we're going, why it's important to you. You figure out the how as you go along the way, but I think the clarity makes the discipline easier. And everyone I've ever studied or talked to, it's never the sexy fun stuff that like makes the difference. It's the boring, it's the repetition, it's the do it whether you feel like it or not. But I will say in my experience too, over the past couple of years, if we've gotten better, bigger, and add more team members, one of the great benefits of growing bigger and scaling is you can hire more people and you can offload a lot of the stuff that you don't feel like doing. So you can fill your calendar with stuff you do feel like doing. So that's another strategy to make the discipline easier.
Mm. Well, definitely, and also having this idea of what are we moving towards is really important to keep our motivation going. Another aspect that can create some challenges is fear. So you are an introvert and had to learn to feel the fear and do it anyway. So is it true that sometimes fear just won't go away and we will have to do it while we are scared?
Oh gosh, in my experience again, yeah, 100%. That book for someone who's listening, it is called that Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yeah, I
And I'm
did read
blanking
it.
on the have you read it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I'm blanking on the author's name, but for anyone listening, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So a couple of things there that have helped me a lot. So I've always had a lot of anxiety. I'm more introverted. I can make myself extroverted for like us talking, but I'm inherently more introverted, nervous, thinking a lot, worried about stuff, very, very much my whole life. So I had a false belief, I think, that held me back was that I thought like some people have fear and some people don't, like just black and white, whatever. What I've learned is that everyone has fear to varying degrees. Some people just have the fear, don't take any action, sit and don't do anything. That was me for a long time. So I would like see fear as like a wall. I'd see it and I'd run backwards. I'd run away. Let me go back to being comfortable. And that held me back a lot. What I've learned is that the people that I admire and achieve a lot of things, they have essentially the same fears that I do. They don't lack the fear. They just act anyway, feel the fear and do it anyway. I heard her say, I was like, oh God, what a beautiful way to say that. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So they see the fear wall, and instead of running away, they go through it. And that's what
Mm.
I've learned to do as I've gotten older. And a lot of the cliche things are cliche because it's true. Like all of our dreams are on the other side of our fears. Like I found that to be true. And so, from a mindset perspective, understanding that everyone has fear, there's nothing wrong with me, but I just have to learn how to go through it. That's what people do. And then underneath that, it's like, well, then how do I do that? Like, what are the tactics or strategies to actually do that? And I talked through that in some of the videos. But like breathing, like breathing is a big thing that has helped me through my fear. I think putting things into perspective. Oftentimes we spend a lot of time worrying about things or thinking about things that, like in a year from now, am I going to even remember this thing? In 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, like perspective helps. Breath work helps. There's other tactics to it, but um, I think the mindset that that's okay, and then having a couple of tactics to push through the fear and understanding that's the goal. Like the goal isn't to feel no fear.
Mm.
In fact, the goal is probably to feel fear. Like that's probably indicative of some good things. But how do you act when the fear comes up? I think that's the question. What are those strategies and tactics?
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we do something while we are scared, then our self-confidence can grow because we actually feel that we tame our fears, and so we can move forward. So there's
Hmm.
lots of talks about manifestation everywhere. What is the role of manifestation when aiming to build our dream lives? in your experience?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that in 1 second. I just want to touch on something you said there because I think it's so freaking good. When you said when we feel the fear and we act on that, it makes us feel better. It's so ironic to me. So I write 2 pages. I'm going to take a long route to your answer here. I write 2 pages every week just as a discipline practice. And I was like, at the start of it, I want to write a book called The Art, something along the lines of like The Art of Happiness, right? Or like feeling good. How do you feel good? And it's so ironic to me that of all the things we can do to feel good, the two real things that I've had that really make me feel good and last long are what you just said, which is when you feel fear, you act in spite of it. And the second thing is the discipline, is like doing the things you promise yourself you would do. Now, those are two things that we all have total control over. They cost no money. They take no extra time. We don't need to do anything to do them other than literally do the thing. I think that's so important. Like if someone would have said that to me when I was younger and I would have heard that well, I think that would have changed my perspective on anything. How do you feel good all the time? You push through your fear and you do the things you promise yourself you would do.
Mm.
Okay. Side note. I'm so glad you said that. I think that's so good. Manifestation. So, yeah, obviously there's a lot more stuff that has come out now. And I've learned from a lot of people. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I think as of the past couple of years, has been a leader in this visualization, manifestation, etc. So it happened. It works for me in a couple of ways. Number one, like I said, with the Jim Rohn thing, like I would implore people to first write down the things that they would want to manifest. So I do it in that order, meaning like I don't sit down and start manifesting and see what's going to come up. I'm very clear on what I want to manifest and think about first. Not saying that's right or wrong. That just has worked for me. So I want to know what I'm going and thinking about first, and then I do the manifestation practice. I don't like see what pops up, sort of thing. So for me, I want to write down everything, like get clear on, let's just say a 10-year dream life. Let's use that as an example. So 10 years from now, if we could create a dream life and write down what exactly that would look like. Where do I live? What does my house look like? Who am I around? What do I spend my day doing? Like in as much detail as humanly possible. Um, that would be the first thing. And then spending time essentially visualizing those things as if they already happened. So like transporting yourself into that future time where you have those things. So I would write it down first. I'd start that practice and I'd start small and build your way up if you've never done this before. Like I do 20 minutes every day, not 5 days a week, not when I feel like it, like 20 minutes every day, no matter what, for the past 7 years. And everything I've ever had on that list, I've gotten everything.
That's incredible.
So yeah, so to me, it's like that's I think the proof of it working. And so I think if you can write them all down, literally start with like 5 minutes, turn a timer on someone's phone if they haven't done it before. And I've seen some of your, you some of the manifest videos as well, like following along something and working through a practice. But I think if you start at 5 minutes and do it and then build to 10, 20, et cetera, I almost think about it where I'm like, because I feel like I'm getting pretty good at it, but I'm like, man, I do 20 minutes. Like, man, what would happen like if I did 30 or 40? Like, what are the things I'm not thinking about that I could be getting or having or working towards? That's almost more of like a fear for me now, which is interesting, different end of the spectrum.
Mm. So you have a great commitment. Time is going really quickly, and we're actually reaching the end of this episode, but we have a few more questions. So first of all, if anyone would like to reach out to you, how and where they can find you?
Yeah, so I think if someone's into YouTube or building social media and things like that, Eric Cogorno Golf is where our golf business is at. That'd be a good place to go see what we actually do. You could like model some of those things at work or not. Lessons I've learned with Eric Cogorno is our new personal development channel. That's where we talk about stuff like where we're talking today.
Great. So how do you think you're making the world a better place with your work?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think one of the things, I'll try and shorten these answers up. I know I can go on for a long time. I think my golf stuff thus far has been really rewarding, but I do feel like there's a little bit of a ceiling because I'm helping someone play a game better. So it's like, okay, I can have an impact on the person that I'm with. I think that's important. I think I can make their life better through golf, which has been good. But I do feel like there's a ceiling there. So as we shift into personal development, I'm hoping that I can share the things that I've learned and continue to learn on there just to help people live better. I think I love talking about building an online business and dream life and stuff like that. But like the fear videos, like I was so crippled by fear growing up. Like I wish I'd have had some tactics to help that. And so hopefully with the personal development videos, it'll help people live better. That's the goal.
And if you could give only one piece of advice, what would you say to anyone during their journey to self-realization? Someone that is starting out, like when you were a young boy and you were just on that starting your golf journey.
So the first thing that comes to mind, and the kicker here is I'm not sure how old you need to be for this to be appropriate, but I would write down on a sheet of paper the things you want. Let's just call them goals. And I would get into a practice of rewriting them every single day for the rest of your life. Now, I think that's hard to hear if you're like 10 years old, right?
Yes. I
I
don't
think
think
that's
10
hard to
years
hear.
old are gonna listen to this, but
No, I don't either. So I think
let's say
like,
from 18.
yeah, 18 and up, like, because I'm thinking of myself in my life and when I'd be ready to hear that. I think like high school, 18 up, there's zero doubt in my mind that if me, you, whoever would write down our goals every day, right? And spend 10 minutes a day thinking about them, visualizing them as done, the answers to how to get them present themselves as you go. And that's something that I did not know earlier that I wish I would have done. So writing down goals every single day, spending 10 minutes to think about them, that should take you 15 total minutes, maybe. And that 15-minute investment done every day for like a decade, I mean, imagine the results that would bring.
Hmm. Oh, that sounds unbelievable. So now really the last question, if you could give yourself a piece of advice, what would you say to your younger self?
Think bigger sooner would be the first one. I would say think who, not how, which is a Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan book that helped me. Like other people are the keys to things going well, you getting things getting better. You don't have to do everything yourself. Think bigger, faster. Think more about other people, who, not how. And then I think I would have told myself the fear thing, feel the fear and do it anyway. I think those would have been three big ones that would have helped a lot.
Well, thank you, Eric, so much for joining us today and sharing your inspirational career story and wisdom with our listeners.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
And the last message for our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review. And tune in next week for a new inspirational episode of The Career Changers. Thank you.